Yes, I think that it's got a pretty decent spot in the meta. I do tend to feel like this is a bring because a lot of people have noticed that the anti-bomb warrior strategy has become more prevalent even in these bigger tournaments. We've seen people try it out in Grandmasters, and it was pioneered in MT Montreal. And so this
Light
warrior still has quite
smiles
a few
upon the
good matchups
just.
without falling too prey to all of the oozes and sticky fingers. We are going to start off, though, with a good old Priest Mirror.
Raven, get back here. No, so yeah, Priest Mirror is not necessarily the slugfest they used to be. They can still take sort of 30 or 40 minutes, but they're not the absolute nightmare of an hour and a quarter or whatever that they could be in the past. And that's because they're basically a tempo matchup now. There's a lot of value to be gained, but really whoever occupies the board is king for many turns in a row.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I feel like it's hit a nice balance between making sure that you have value and tempo, but the value engine largely feels like it's there so that you can build a board every single turn. And the person who either runs out of a good response or spends one turn not really developing a threat of their own feels very far behind. And for Gaby here, he does have a list that is maybe a bit lighter on threat compared to Zoltan, who is running the one of Twilight Drake that I've become a fan of.
Yes, that's the floating slot. You see all sorts of things in that slot. I've seen people playing Volpira Scoundrel in that slot recently. Tried it myself, wasn't impressed. Haven't seen it in this tournament, so nobody else is impressed either.
Yep.
But it is only one card, so if he doesn't draw it, they're basically on level footing. What's the card on the other side? I'm just trying to work out.
I will get back to you on that. I had to remove my contact lenses
Oh, it's
because
the
they were
second Holy
drying up for
Smite.
staying on.
Ouch.
Okay,
So second
I
Holy
can
Smite
see.
for Gaby, which is interesting actually, because one of the reasons you can get away with playing one Holy Smite and one Shadow Word Death is, of course, the craziness that is the Cleric of Scales.
Yes, the consistency of also running two Holy Smites, I'm sure, helps the Priest in a lot of other matchups. Definitely not the Mirror, but Gaby should already be feeling pretty happy about having generated an additional Murazond off of his first Draconic studies. And speaking of dragons, Zoltan really wishes he had picked up one of his own, because these two Clerics are looking very much stranded here, while his Sethic doesn't quite have any good spells to pair with it.
Yeah, and from this point on, for several turns, no matter what, it looks like Zoltan is going to be on the back foot. It will play out very much like a rogue mirror in slow motion.
Yeah, the first question though is whether he feels it necessary to drop the Sethic just to try and contest the one on the other side of the board. The problem is, even if there isn't a buff that comes down from Gaby, Zoltan can't just kill the Sethic with the damage he represents with his own. So I would just default on passing the turn here, but it feels very, very scary for sure.
Gaby has
Oh.
drawn Apotheosis. Of course he has. This is how Gaby always is.
And he just generates another one straight away from the Sethic, which would keep the train going on the next turn. That's huge. I was going to say the first play of Sethic from Gaby was very much just to get on board and maybe try and warrant an overreaction on Zoltan's side. Didn't quite have a spell to pay off immediately, but that top deck changes everything. For Zoltan, though, definitely a welcome sight for him to have something proactive of his own to do while he can still hold on to the Acolyte and Wave of Apathy combo.
And while you're saying that, everything you said we just shot down as the Holy Smite bits off the top. And I was wondering actually if Gaby would just never buff this beyond 4 attack. The old meme actually is stronger than it has been in a long time. 4 attack minions in Priest, especially in the mirror, particularly in the mirror, are really powerful now.
Right. It's also important that he did put another minion on board this turn. That was prior to him gaining the knowledge that the Acolyte wave combo was in hand immediately for Zoltan. He knows now that it's there, and so it is a 50-50 to steal the Sethic if Zoltan wants to go for it. But now that he has Murazond, there are other options he can try to pull from the Cleric of Scales, because that 2-card combo is definitely very valuable in the matchup.
Yeah, if he goes for this 50-50, it's actually massive if he hits it, of course. And he may feel he has to. It looks like he's going to with this coin play. Don't make the mistake of playing the coin in the wrong order, because that goes really badly.
Absolutely don't want to waste a spell burst on that. Looking at the spells he could have gotten from the Cleric of Scales, actually there weren't all that many. Gaby was feeling it for the 50-50, and look at this boy. I was gonna say man, but you said that he was 10 when he first hit Legend.
When he first hit
rank 1, my bad, rank 1 Legend.
Yeah, he was 8 when he first played, and I think he hit Legend pretty quickly.
Dear Lord, the kids are evolving these days. What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely nutty stats there about Gaby. And like, joking aside, this is the cocky Gaby we see when he's playing, streamers, when he's talking to streamers about the game and how good he is. And we haven't seen this side of him much in tournament play. He hasn't had that confidence, but I think he's had a couple of 7-2s or 6-3, 7-2. And obviously the confidence is there now, and he's starting to feel like, I belong here. This is my town now. Everybody move over. I'm going to start winning.
Absolutely impressive. The Cleric of Scales last turn was already pretty iffy for Zoltan, because even if he did pick up the Holy Smite in his deck, it would not be enough to shoot down the Sethic Veil Weaver. The same problem stands here, but now he just doesn't have many better options. It could be that he picks Renew to try and go with the Pyro the next turn, but the board is already snowballing out of control.
Yeah, it's not been a good run for Zoltan. His hand didn't really add up nicely, and he lost the 50-50. Gaby top decked Apotheosis at the right time. Plus, Gaby's just done everything right so far as I can see. It doesn't help when your opponent doesn't make mistakes.
Ends up picking Apotheosis, which I can definitely see being played this turn just to create a minion that doesn't straight up die to value trades on the other side, because everything certainly is just going to get traded down by Gaby, and his own minions will get healed up, and he wins the value war by virtue of just having minions take good trades.
Yeah, he would really like to get this Acolyte dead before he plays the Raise dead to have a really good chance of picking one back up, but I don't think he's going to be able to. He's going to have to play it next turn, I think, just to steal whatever he can.
I am highly content to go for Shadow or Death and start popping off with Sethic even further. Honestly, every bit of damage he gets to connect and every minion he defeats with the minions he's played on board feels like a bonus already, because he's not even using cards and additional value to get rid of them, because they're immediately replenished by the Sethic.
Yeah, and this is another reason why you can just afford to go absolutely crazy with your cards early on. Apart from the fact this is basically a tempo deck, as we keep stressing. This is why you can just fill your hand back up if you've got space. And there you go. What, 9 cards? Something like that? Yeah, 9-card hand. Perfect. Of course it is.
Yeah, ahead on card advantage, ahead on board, and like he said, he did want to get the Acolyte in the pool. And it is just insane how far ahead on board Gaby has already gotten. I'm not sure what the out is for Zoltan here, other than trying to hope Gaby will walk into a good Murazon on the other side, but it's highly doubtful he'll do that.
Yeah, the game sometimes still lingers on a while from here, though. A good Soul Mirror, or maybe a good wave into playing something. Maybe Gaby slips up and Murazon happens. Yeah, things can still happen. They happen incredibly slowly, so as casters, we have to keep our wits about us. As players, they have to keep their wits about them. I've certainly thrown from positions similar to this. But yeah, Gaby should just keep the gas on for the whole game now. But it's not really gas, it's more like something that goes really slowly. I associate gas with being quite quick.
Picks up a Lazul and Cleric of Scales. He's searching for the Soul Mirror, I have to imagine, even as early as now. It's not necessarily going to be the play next turn, but just having that in your back pocket is always a bit of reassurance, as Priest doesn't hit the Murazon on the other side from the Lazul. I feel like he needed a high impact card like that to offset the amount of value that he's fallen behind on.
Yeah, I think the first thing, though, is just to try and get the board back. And Soul Mirror at least just about gives him some hope of doing that. I'm choosing my words carefully, because the shape of Gaby's minions isn't really that great for the Soul Mirror, and Gaby being the Soul Mirror E when he receives it. But it's something for Zoltan.
True. Yeah, the Sethic and the Cobalt Spellkin both having more health than attack is a slight problem here. Inner Fire, I think Gaby is just trying to make space in his hand now.
Doesn't even copy Seth X. Obviously it was silent to make it small, so just going for the biggest thing he has, which is a 3-5, and now he's just making stuff.
Yep.
You sometimes reach
As a
the
priest
point.
player here, you're very content to just play with your food somewhat. I mean, obviously he's still doing this very methodically where he is not getting rid of any of his most important resources here. Essentially all the additional pressure and minion presence he's generating are off of the Sethic. There's things that they didn't start in his deck, and so he's not afraid to give them up.
Yeah, and you can see why Zoltan, in fairness to him, with the bad hand he's had, challenged the Sethek on turn 2. Met it with a Sethek, and then Gaby drew the Apotheosis, which he was representing anyway. Like, Zoltan actually made a good play calling that bluff. It just went wrong because Apotheosis was picked up. But also Gaby's playing 2 Holy Smite. He could have picked up either of those as well. It wasn't just a one-card wonder.
Yeah, the first player getting to stick a Sethek is a very big deal in this matchup.
Indeed,
the fact that they are not running penances also, that's fallen out of favor in Priestless, makes it even harder to consistently remove the Sethek, and you have only that small window before the buffs can start to come and play and really snowball out of control. Zoltan forced to go for the Soul Mirror, still leaves a decent chunk of damage on the other side, and Gaby, as long as that Sethek lives, he gets to generate more and more win conditions that they don't even hurt his overall resource pool.
Yeah, and even last turn he played a Radiance even though he was on full health just to make room for the top deck of his library, which has now become his Cleric of Scales. So he's thinking clearly. He's doing well. It's probably been a long day as well, playing a day of Priests. So
he can just Shadow Madness to get rid of the 2 big minions on the other side. Honestly, even if he ends up overdrawing here, which is a distinct possibility, the Sethek has given him too much value at this point. I don't think Gaby minds very much.
Yeah, this is something that Sottle pointed out earlier, is that the people that are really good at Priest and play a lot of Priest, and Gaby is definitely in that category, they still like to do everything perfectly. I'd be like you, well, I'm winning here, I'm just going to play some cards, I'll probably end up overdrawing. But some of these players just refuse to do that. Turn after
it's
turn.
Definitely fair as well. And he goes for the Murazon so as not to overdraw, which also, of course, clears the board with the Soul Mirror loaded in. And it's not a good Murazon on the other side as a response. So I think Gaby feels pretty secure in doing this. Zoltan needs help. I'm not sure what miracles the Thoughtsteal can give him at this point.
Maybe game 2 will be better to him. But yeah, Thoughtsteal might be the only thing he can even try at this point. He's facing down at basically lethal. I know Priest doesn't have much direct damage, but Gaby's very likely to have something, well, have Apotheosis again by now. So
it's going digging with the Cobalt Spellkin. Does pick up a wave of Apathy to potentially try and steal the Sethek again next turn, because I have to imagine it's Shadow or Death on Murazon this turn.
Yeah, that makes sense. This gives him some sort of out. And this is why we talk about this being a tempo matchup that still takes a little while. It just goes forever before you can deliver the killing blow, even if you're a long way in front. Gaby's been in front since turn 3. Never looked in danger, but still having to be careful every single turn.
Sethek sometimes can give you lethals out of nowhere if you generate Inner Fire to go along with Apotheosis, etc. He's going to start with the Apo, get the train going. He's unlikely to get lethal immediately, but he can just take any measure of value trades he wants, continue to push the damage, and should there be a response on the other side, he has so much refill.
Very important point here as well that Gaby is doing. He's seen the Soul Mirror now, and so to play around potential disasters with Cabal Acolyte and Waves, he's going wide all the time, which means that Zoltan's chance of hitting the thing he wants gets lower and lower. Like, this is a deliberate tactic because he knows that he's reasonably safe here. Yeah, there might be a generated Holy Nova, that's life, but he just reloads if that happens.
Yeah, the real disaster here, if we even want to stretch and call it that, is maybe the Sethic getting stolen away and generating the same value that it did for Gaby up to this point. But he has built a board to mitigate the worst outcome.
Yeah, and on the other side as well, Zoltan's had to use all of his targeted cards just to not die in this matchup. I'm sure there's one or two still in the deck, but he hasn't even got a very good Sethek, even if he steals it at the moment. He's going to have to rebuild if he wants that to happen.
Looks like he was reaching for Draconic Studies. I think Twin Tyrant is potentially good here as a way to finally have a chance at dealing with Sethek. The Cabal Acolyte wave feels far too fragile.
Yeah, you can see why you don't give up.
Steal instead.
Yep. You can see why you don't give up. Like, the size of minions that Zoltan has is actually now bigger than the ones that Gaby has in hand if he ever does get a chance to get onto the board, and now he's creating some more stuff. You know, the game can swing around.
We're just bouncing the Sethek back. He has his own Cabal Shadow Priest to do that.
On wings of destruction,
Yeah.
they come.
Oh my goodness. And of course, Gaby does still have a lot of his strong cards left because of how the game has gone. And he's 3 cards ahead in
fatigue. He just hasn't had to use any of the waves of apathy.
Let me change your mind.
3 cards ahead in fatigue as well, so the onus is on Zoltan to actually beat him. It's not just about catching up, it's about actually finding a way to get in front and stay there. In case he wasn't in enough trouble.
Ay. So if he goes Thoughtsteal for the other Soul Mirror in Gaby's deck, that might be the only out.
That's a really good point. Gaby had the choice to take that out there a minute ago. But then he probably gets Lizzled more often than he gets Thoughtstealed.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably
true.
still correct. I want to find a mistake. Gaby, make one. Make an obvious one. Ping yourself in the face.
It's really tough to say. Can't play around Thoughtsteal, otherwise you play into Mind Vision and Lazul. Priest just has ways of stealing no matter where the cards are, even from other classes.
Yeah. But looks like Zoltan's not able to steal enough right now.
He can stall. He can just go for the Cabal Acolyte and wave.
Wave goodbye.
Hope he gets... Yeah, certainly feels like it.
Your mind is not your...
Yep, he's going to go for it. I think this is the correct play in the world where you're playing for $30,000.
Absolutely.
Correct play on ladder is to be halfway through the next game, about 4 turns ago.
Even healing a minion here, he's confident that he will not die from 10, which is a pretty reasonable thing to assume given that he didn't die the previous turn.
Yeah, there's no clear kill here for Gaby. And these are the turns where you have to be careful. The wave turns, it's not just the stealing the minion, it's the fact you have a turn where you can't attack. You've got to be careful not to lose the board here. This is where he does need to be a little bit more precise.
That's right. This is a little bit tricky, and if he wants, he can still clear at least the Cabal Acolyte and the Cabal Shadow Priest using his Shadow Madness. Is gonna go for Mass Dispel first. Is this just a lethal that we didn't spot? I'm still not seeing it.
Don't think so, unless he clerics. No, it's not enough mana to cleric into Apotheosis. That still wouldn't be lethal. He's just clearing things up.
Okay, so the Mass Dispel did allow him to push minion damage face by removing the taunt, and he also gets a better Shadow Madness target to trade into the Cabal Shadow Priest. I guess there's not that much value to Mass Dispel in this matchup to begin with.
Yeah, you should just afford it. It protects you against, like, big Apotheosis, big Setheks, whatever. The Sethek we saw, you wouldn't mind a Mass Dispel to get rid of that. It just protects you against nonsense when you're a long way in front.
And for this turn for Zoltan, he does have a pretty good Inner Fire plus value trade or double value trade available, and he can end with the Skeletal Dragon just to have another taunt in the way and not let the Shadow Priest push face.
Yep.
Starts to get a little scary though. I don't see a way to guaranteed clear all the minions, so in that position, I would default to just putting the biggest threat in the way.
Yeah, I think I agree. I just keep putting things in the way doesn't get you in front, but what else can you do? Needs a multi-turn plan, and everything we can see about a multi-turn plan involves him losing.
Okay, so he does end up putting more minion presence on the board, stickier minions as well. Doesn't get the immediate taunt, but it feels like for the past 3 or 4 turns now, Zoltan has been operating under the assumption that there's no additional burst in Gaby's hand, which is, you know, pretty reasonable to assume versus Priest.
This Master Spell, Gia! It's actually disgusting!
Yep. Oh, goodbye, Twilight Drake. Goodbye, Death Rattle on the card.
He's now actually got to consider this renew on the Pyromancer as well, but just go the safe way.
Oh, nothing could have stopped me from just going for Renew plus cheap spell and getting the Shadow Priest to push face. But Gaby has been around the block. He knows how this matchup goes. As long as he milks out the maximum value from each of his cards, there's just no way he loses. If we go all the way down to all the cards at the bottom of the deck, it certainly feels like it won't end up in fatigue because of how far ahead Gaby got in the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. You can see it all just starting to unfold now. If you didn't believe us before, which you should have done because we're experienced professionals, you can now see just the card advantage is starting to manifest, as well as the still got that bit of board presence hanging around as well. You can just see that Gaby has just got the better of this all the way through. But part of that is because of his good start. I don't want to say anything too harsh to Zoltan here. Zoltan got a really crippling early draw. Oh dear.
Every turn I look for lethal and it's not there.
This is just an oh dear though.
This is lethal on the soul, if not Anduin's actual health total. It's so spirit crushing to have your one value engine be stolen away immediately.
Yeah, and unlike us, Gaby still has a Pyromancer on the board for like 3 turns. I don't think I've ever had one sit on the board for 3 turns in my life.
I mean, he had a Sethek sit on the board for 5 turns, it felt like.
Very true. I've had that. That is a thing that when you do get that early start, it is a thing that's even players like me keep a Sethek on the board for a while.
Oh, didn't get... Wait. Oh, that was the order that he wanted. Oh, never mind. Okay. I am very sleepy, Lorinda.
You're good.
Wave played before the Cabal Acolyte, but the animation of the wave went off after the animation of Cabal hit the board, so I thought it would activate the spell burst, but I got baited there.
Yeah, Zoltan can't even steal good cards. I guess a good card back there. That's helpful.
Yep. Just didn't get to fit in the hero power because of the order in which the Murazond activation went off. There has to be a lethal, please. I can't see it though. It's just no way to push 1 more damage guaranteed. He could go fishing with Renew for some type of buff spell.
That's what he's doing.
Power Word Feast? There must be a lethal. But the Pyro is gone.
Ugh. He does still have the... I'm just looking to make sure this can't go wrong, but he's still got the Plague, so he's okay if things get accidents here. Because he's actually temporarily behind on board. It's not going to last long, but that's the first time even halfway through a turn that he's been behind on board for a long time.
And that's very impressive for Zoltan to even manage to put himself in that position.
Yeah, it's very easy just to think, I've lost, I'll give up. He's definitely putting up a fight here.
Okay, Pyro Apo. And he has Raise Dead to go along with that. That's a lot of procs of healing, but there's just too much health on the minions on the other side, right? But if the Raise Dead can get him Cleric of Scales, maybe you were talking?
Yeah, I mean, it buys him health. The health's important. He's got this Dragon Queen Alexstrasza that at some point pretty soon will be active. We don't have Deck Tracker available. And yeah, if you're going to ask me to remember all the cards in a Priest Mirror, good luck. I'm not. Spoilers. But if you can get that Dragon Queen Alexstrasza active, that could be a big factor. Crazy things can happen there.
Yeah, Zoltan does Sorry, I do have deck tracker. He has 3 2-ofs still left in the deck.
Okay.
Wand make. Wait, according to this, it says wand maker, but he has a wand maker in hand.
I think he stole a one maker a moment ago.
Ah,
with
I
the
see, I
Thought
see.
Steal. That's why I said he couldn't even steal good cards, I think.
Gotcha. 2 renews, 2 raise dead also left in there.
Okay. So there's quite a bit of value still available for him in the deck. And he's leveled it up on the board.
Picking up Lazul is definitely a big deal as well. Cabal Acolytes, without another wave in hand at the moment, certainly feels a bit weaker, but it's Priest. There are ways to generate the
On wings of
wave.
destruction they come.
I can see how this ends. They're both going to end up with 6 Waxadreads, aren't they?
I'm going to go ahead and say no.
Okay. I think that's probably reasonably safe, but I don't know. I just got this... I've seen the Waxadread ending happen too many times. It haunts me.
What Zoltan has bought himself, though, with the Pyro turn is time. So if he can somehow leverage this Lazul and Dragon Queen Alexstrasza into a position where he makes up for all the value deficit that he had in the beginning of the game, this could end up still going to fatigue. But I have a hard time seeing that happen because he's used up pretty much all of his wide removal.
Yeah, I might even go the other way. I might say it's almost certain to sort of have some fatigue element to it. It might only be 1 or 2 points, though. But I still struggle to see how he turns it around. But like you say, there's no AoE available. Maybe he Lazuls into this Plague, though. That would be a big deal.
Yep, it would be, but I'm very interested in the Sethek top deck. Seems very timely here. He has the 1 activation with Holy Smite. I feel like I would go digging here if I were Zoltan. If he doesn't get another spell to keep the train going, maybe he can dig in Gaby's hand with the Lazul.
Yeah, I wonder if he's considering playing it alongside the Cabal. He only steals a 1/1, but it's a 1/1 that he might not be able to steal ever again. Like, there might not be much else to steal. He hasn't got another wave, you don't think, right? Is that right?
Yeah, there's just tons of considerations to be made here. He starts off with the Lazul. That's another wave, so that certainly feels like the Cabal Acolyte has a lot more potential now. He's looking to steal back the Skeletal Dragon, which has survived for how many turns now, and given both players a lot more value than they had any business having, but yikes! Worst target to steal.
Steals the card he could have stolen anyway. It's pretty rough.
But it's still a big deal, the wave itself, in preventing the Cabal Acolyte from just immediately getting value traded on the other side.
And now Gaby's seen the Acolyte, he's happy to play the Waxadread. He's been pretty careful not to play it down early. Obviously, it's great for your fatigue, it's great for your board presence, but it's not great if your opponent steals it. And the shocking conclusion I was projecting has been avoided by Gaby at source.
Gaby should also know now that Zoltan's hand is 4 out of 5 generated dragons. And so the things that Gaby can actually play around this point with full knowledge are few and far between. And that's why I really like that you brought up the point about the last natural Cabal Acolyte being played out. He's also accounted for the Renew cards. It's really just what came off of the Skeletal Dragon and the Draconic Studies.
He's had to go into the tank, though. Gaby, maybe 6 turns ago, was a lot more chipper than this. Now he's actually having to activate the brain a lot more seriously. I mean, I'm sure it's been seriously activated the whole time, but now he's actually fully zoned in on this game, just in case something bad happens. 4 dragons is a scary thing to be up against when you don't know which ones they are.
Certainly seems that way. The Alex is still a ways off from being active. Zoltan hasn't drawn any of the 3 2-ofs left remaining.
Yeah, apparently Ray's dead is something we can't be too clear on, but the other ones we should be okay. So Zoltan still with this seemingly never-ending run uphill, but
it's just he's never given Gaby's never given Zoltan quite an effective Murazon turn in that it swings board while developing board. The best it can do for Zoltan here is develop a little bit.
And get a Waxadread. Maybe the ending is still on with 6 asides.
Yeah. it's just gonna have to get there for Zoltan because he didn't have any proactive plays otherwise.
Gaby there revealing his thoughts. I don't think he's going to do it now, but the Plague of Death was something he showed. So maybe he's going to suicide his Waxed Red into the 8/8 and then Plague just to set up that late game. It does concede the board if he goes that way, though.
Yeah, that's a bit scary. He does have waves for days after that, but there's just not a great alternative for clearing the board immediately if he doesn't go for Plague, right? I'm pretty interested in maybe just a tempo-based wave and dropping down the Onyxia he took.
The problem is he knows that these generated dragons, they're probably quite big because his opponent hasn't had a chance to do it. So yeah, the Onyxia might be just better here. He can afford to take a hit, so the fact his opponent might hit him for 15 isn't nice, but it's not scary. But yeah, he gives up the board, Gia.
Going for the play you suggested, and against all the odds, Zoltan has initiative now. I never thought I would see the day in this match, and he does have, if nothing better, some pretty well-statted 5-cost dragons to drop down.
Yep, and Gaby, I mean, he won't die to them anytime soon because, like you say, the waves for days, especially with Onyxia in hand, so something there, but yeah, he's worried now. This is close.
I must consider.
And so, if Zoltan is in a position where he sees Gaby just cede the board completely, he has to think that, oh, surely Gaby has a contingency plan for dealing with any big threat I put down. It must be a steal. So I think, if anything, he'll be most interested in putting down several targets on the board instead of just one.
So Gaby now has a different plan. He knows he wins the late game because one Waxed Red versus no Waxed Reds was a deliberate setup there.
Right.
But he's got to get to that late game, and Zoltan would just love to be able to play 2 big dragons instead of 1 plus a bad thing right now.
I mean, 2 medium-sized ones feels okay to me. The big ol' whelp also kind of gets him closer to activating Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. He's at a point now where, because of the Waxed Red, like you mentioned, there's just no way he wins in fatigue. So I think you have to kind of bite the bullet and start drawing through the deck now.
So Mirrors on wave, I think it's fair to assume your opponent did the best thing they could do last turn. Like, it's the first time Zoltan gets the chance to be ahead on board. So I think Gaby can assume that Zoltan sort of went for the max there. So personally, I'd have been tempted to play the Mirrors on.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty strong argument he just set up for counter-lethal, but from Gaby's perspective, there's still, I think, one Maker and Renew that he hasn't accounted for. He's just trying not to get too punished by a wave on the other side, and so he is stealing a dragon as early as now.
Yep. And because he has these extra waves, he can do what he likes.
Since start with Holy Smite, he's going to start with a more expensive card, but that does give him double value from the Sethics. Triple value from the Sethics if he wants it. Oh my goodness, what are we watching?
It's an absolute mess, which Priest Mirrors always are, but what I like about them is they're a mess within a fairly enclosed pool, usually. You can predict the sort of mess you're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
Because I haven't had my chance to argue with everyone. Sorry?
Silence on Waxadred? Seems pretty good.
Yeah, especially as Gaby showed you, that's the route he was planning to win the game when he did the weird trade into Plague.
Goes for Plague of Death instead, which I can definitely get behind, because even if he does silence the Waxadred, he's still just losing on board there. Too much damage on the other side. So instead, he's setting up for Gaby to expend resources to get rid of these Sethics, and whatever is left on the board, Zoltan can comfortably clear with the Plague of Death.
Yeah, now he's got the mind control. It could be like Waxadred's like 2-0 to Zoltan in a minute.
Oh, this is getting crazy. Ray's dead. Gaby, I imagine, is looking for his Cabal Shadow Priests or Acolytes to get the Sethic on the other side.
How many Murazons do you want?
Murazons?
And so his plan now really is to get ahead once and just Murazond everything. And then he will win.
I mean, that seems reasonable, except that there are 2 Sethics on the other side, which can just generate ways of dealing with the Murs on board.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got to do things first. He can't just mess around. I guess another Soul Mirror.
Oh my goodness. Just ending with wave and probably a Mind Flare Forge here. Waves
Gaby
for
gets-
days, minimizing the damage, finally going for face attacks, and this is the plague that Zoltan was trying to set up for.
Yep. Yeah, Gary's had enough of playing with his food. He's just going to try and kill his opponent now, like the rules of the game suggest. But he has managed to go forward about 1.5 feet during the course of this. It's about
If
45
Zoltan-
centimeters.
For sure. If Zoltan had more hand space to play with, I would be interested in trying to eke out more value with the Sethix and clear the board some way like that. But there's just not enough hand space and not enough health to take any risks. So he's ripping the plague here, putting Gaby on having to refill, and he has held on to the Onyxia for this purpose.
Yep. Don't play Moazon and you're good. Even though it is a third of your hand right now.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, double. How greedy can one person get is my question.
I mean, he got rank 1 legend 4 months in a row or something. So pretty greedy if you're Gaby. I think it was 3 months in a row. But one of those was a double.
I wonder.
So Sethic and then gift the Waxadread or just Sethic itself? They all seem like winning lines to me.
Yeah, something that Gaby has done very well this game is not lose it. I know that sounds really stupid, but he has had a chance to lose this game. Zoltan has hung in there and made Gaby fight. And if Gaby hadn't stayed being focused, and he could easily have got rid of this game. But he's still there.
There were avenues for Zoltan to come back, and there still technically are. There's Pyro Penance, Holy Smite to get rid of Onyxia plus the 1 once the Waxadread still stays up, which is annoying.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage. And this time there's no Pyro with Apotheosis to save the health total.
Zoltan just absolutely will not have the time to stick the mind control or to play the mind control, given that Gaby has had threat refill after threat refill every single turn.
Yeah, and he's down to 2 cards in deck now as well, so he's not just fighting having a low health total, he's fighting fatigue, finishing him off even if he clears the board. He's got to generate threats, he's got to do 29 damage, he's got to do a lot of things, and none of them seem to make sense.
It looks like he's just trying to survive this turn, which I can respect, because the last 2 cards in his deck are a duplicate. Those are the 2 wand makers, if the deck tracker is not being weird, which means that Alex Drazo will be active next turn.
Yep. And then anything can happen, I guess, although maybe not. I think Gaby, for the first time in a few turns, is starting to look very comfortable again. How many Setheks has Gaby had? It feels like he's had a Sethek in his hand all game, every turn.
I'm going to go ahead and say 25 million. I think that's a pretty safe estimate.
I will definitely validate that as an official Hearthstone statistic.
Thank you, Lorinda. That's what they pay you for.
Pretty sure we're good. But yeah, Gaby.
All right. Another Waxadread in the tank. Definitely not going to lose on fatigue, just making sure he gives Zoltan absolutely no windows to develop and push for a counter lethal.
Yeah, he's going to kill them both off, right? So they can't even be stolen or anything. This is the ultimate priest torture. Just telling your opponent, yeah, you thought you were going to mind control one of these. You unlucky.
Okay, Alex Straza, what are the best outcomes here? Want to say something that can't be targeted? Feels pretty good. Nazari, hello?
I mean, that's a funny outcome. Is it good? It might be good.
I think it is good, but he doesn't necessarily have to rip it this turn because it can potentially heal more later on.
Yeah.
Good explorer.
And it can also mess up Gaby's counting, I guess.
And discover another Deathwing. I would have to assume we're getting to the point. Yep.
Yeah.
It's gonna
It's always a
overdraw
bad
the last
sign.
card, but it's just a wand maker.
Yeah, you take the Deathwing and your opponent still has cards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he can mind control this back, but the Sethics are eternal problems here. I think he can actually afford to face tank a little bit from Gaby because he has this Nazari.
Yep.
Problem is,
I
even if
must
he
consider.
uses the turn to get rid of a Sethic, it's just gonna be one that he has immediately access to removing with the Holy Smite.
So can he work out? Well, he can work out that actually there are no targeted cards at the moment for Gaby. So maybe you just let the Sethics live and say they've done their damage, no more.
It's fair. I mean, he's not aware of every card they've generated to this point, but in terms of what started in the deck, that is true.
So I mean, there is still
Oh,
a Wand
man.
Maker, but take your chance and hope that the Sethics have done their work. Oh dear.
Mind Control Tennis is the new Glaive Bound Tennis. I think we've seen this interaction just go back and forth maybe 4 times already this game alone.
So heal to 30, then next turn make a 12-12. What could go wrong? Sounds good to me.
Yes, I think that he really wants to remove the Sethics before just ending on Deathwing because the only out he has is Deathwing managing to stick and connect face, right? But
Yeah.
every Sethic you leave gives another chance for Gaby to have another answer against the Deathwing.
Yeah, and even getting to 30 isn't great right now. You're facing down 28, something like that.
Mhm.
Exactly that, in
We
fact.
must stop this corruption.
Surprised he's not
Generate.
going fishing with the Mind Vision.
Yeah, interesting. But he's doing what you're saying. He's getting rid of at least a Sethic here.
It feels bad to remove one but not both all in the same turn because a lot of the time you're actually solving Gaby's hand space issues by removing
Right.
one, but he's realizing that he doesn't have mana allocation and maybe on the next turn he gets something to deal with the other Sethic and then finally tops it off with Deathwing. It is a very, very optimistic outlook, but maybe the only out he has.
And we have seen a lot of Hearthstone in this game. A lot has been played, but these Waxer Dreads, yeah, beautifully managed by Gaby to try and minimise the chance of his opponent snaffling one whilst having them himself.
Yep.
Right the way back from just putting one into an 8/8 and then playing Plague of Death a long time ago. He did lose one at one point, but he managed to get rid of that one.
Yeah,
And they've
absolutely.
quietly been the difference.
Yeah, you spotted that line immediately, and honestly, I was just thinking of trying to find a way to lethal even sooner, but Gaby has played enough of this mirror to know that as long as you have the value advantage and don't make any major flubs, then you end up winning towards the late game. Probably gave him much higher percentage overall, and he's
Yeah,
put
it's probably
himself now in a checkmate position.
It's probably 1%, but you would have got an extra like 2 hours sleep, which would have been really welcome for you right now. So I'm not surprised you were looking for the lethal.
Power
Okay, so-
Incarnate, discard your hand, Deathwing gets deathed, and that would be the end.
Yeah, death into Moazond, in fact. Yeah.
You think this is your time?
Oh, Zoltan! Behave yourself. Stop trying to not lose. Absolutely correct, of course. I actually go in on players who do give up too early. Like, why not? Especially when it's somebody like Zoltan. We don't know much about Zoltan, and he's taking on one of the, if not the best player in the world right now. Why not get your airtime and get your experience and get yourself settled down for game number 2 as well? There's a lot to be said.
And he was looking for an out here that is more realistic than Deathwing sticking, which is trying to steal, I suppose, either Sethic or one of the Waxadreads. He ends up stealing Murazond, which, if Gaby didn't have a way to answer another board, was a big deal. But you can see here, there's Shadow Word Death, there's Soul Mirror, there's just far too many resources for Zoltan to be able to win on board. What he is doing, or what he attempted to do, is milk out more resources from Gaby before he goes Deathwing. But the problem is that the Sethic has stuck all this time, so Gaby's not actually expending any of his crucial removal tools.
Yeah, and this is where it's getting interesting for me in particular, because Gaby is now almost out of removal cards. Just this Nova, a Soul Mirror, and a Plague, which sounds like a lot, but he doesn't know what he's facing. That might actually not be enough. As it happens, it's absolutely plenty.
Yeah, there's quite a few unaccounted for spells that he has to think about. For all he knows, there's another Soul Mirror. That's why he's being so cautious. I think he might have a solid read on Deathwing, being a dragon in hand right now, but he has that checked from a million different standpoints. And also, Zoltan is just dead to fatigue.
Gaby with his smirk is like, yeah, I thought you might have that, but unfortunately you're dead next turn.
Okay. I am feeling the strict end turn and call it a game type lethal instead of attacking.
Yeah.
What are you feeling?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. But I would actually like to see Gaby attack. I want to see this sort of, I don't know, professionalism that is attacking here, rather than the meme win. I know it's crazy. I love to see the memes, but I think Gaby is progressing from ladder player to tournament professional, so doing everything kind of by the book is something I'd like to see more of, and I'm impressed to see that. When he's won a big $30,000 event, then I'd love to see him meme every single round, because he's really good at that.
That would be a sight to behold, indeed. And already it is just the first match the first game throughout this match. We did get the big one out of the way, so in some ways that is a consolation. Plenty more Hearthstone to be played out, though. I think the fact that Zoltan still has his priest left standing is going to be a big sticking point here, because I don't necessarily like that matchup up against mage. I have much less experience playing priest versus tempo warrior, though.
Yeah, the tempo warrior in particular is going to be interesting. It's still I was going to say it's a relatively new deck. It was the first deck of this meta like months ago, but then it sort of vanished and better decks were made, but now it's back with a vengeance. But I think I like the priest. I think I like the priest a lot more than I should in every matchup, though. I've played probably too much priest in recent times.
Yeah, I think it's also fair to say that it should have a good chance against Warrior. If skilled Priest players can get an edge against Demon Hunter, which puts out very, very consistent damage, it feels like it should also have a leg up against this type of tempo-based Warrior. I'm not sure if the Warrior actually has access to a true OTK 30-0. I don't think it does, and that's going to be pretty tough. But if Gaby can get some chip damage in there in the mid-game, I think Zoltan will have to be very aware of certain breakpoints that Shield of Honor now gives the Warrior access to.
Yeah, it's possible with Shield of Honor and Coin. I haven't added it up because I knew all the old breakpoints. It might be possible. Just gonna work this out very quickly. So double inner rage on a Corcoran is 8. Double Shield of Honor would be 14.
Victory!
Okay, and a Rampage and then a Bloodsworn? Yeah. Okay, maybe it is possible. Very unlikely.
Yes, it's
but
not
possible.
going to happen, but it's there. Yeah, you asked if it was possible, not will it happen. Okay, and we are going to see that exact matchup. So it'll be interesting to see how Gaby takes this on. And this is the deck he has been doing incredibly well on ladder with. So I think he's going to teach us a lesson or two. I'm looking forward to it.
And he does have coins, so that big combo we were talking about, I think it was 11 mana. So it's technically possible, but much more importantly, he's going to be looking for those Warmal challengers for the early game, just trying to get a firm grasp on the board. You can see every answer to a Sethic early on is also huge.
Yeah, and he's going to need a lot of answers because Zoltan's got the hand. He's got the Sethic Apotheosis start. And
yeah, it's I think unlikely to assume that the Sethic sticks if it just gets played down here, but the fact that he has Raised Dead and also just Madame Lazul for the next turn into the Raised Dead would absolutely make me think that it's fine to play it out here.
I mean, what good things happen if you don't play it out here? You wait till turn 5 and play it with Apotheosis, and then it just gets blown up anyway, and you've given your opponent 3 turns. So yeah, just play it on the board, get on with your game.
Now Gaby has Livewire Lance to deal with it, or he could use Warmal Challenger. It would just go down to 4 health, though.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what it's for.
I challenge you to Makara!
Kill your opponent's key card and still be hanging around on the battlefield, waiting to get Battle Rage. Seems good to me.
Yep, certainly. even if there were a Rampage in hand, it's still of a health total where Priest would struggle to put together a Pyro clear. Blood Boiled Brute
Ooh.
is interesting because he does play a Wild Pyro in the deck. 2 of them, in fact.
Yep, yep.
And there are certain worlds where he can just get it down as, say, a 5-cost minion, which is pretty good for the stats you get with the Rush.
This is actually really difficult to work out. Obviously, Gaby's going to be living with his own injured minions as well for the aforementioned Battle Rage setups and so on. But yeah, the other option was taking maybe a Bloodsworn Mercenary and trying to do something a little bit disgusting. But it's hard to injure your own minions and priests apart from with those Pyros. So
Right.
I like his choice.
Ray's dead here, gonna pull back Lazul and the Sethic for Zoltan.
Yep. Reason number 5 million why you just play your cards on curve and then do it again.
And then you play the Lazul to steal the Skipper, so now he has Skipper plus Sethic and something to go for the Blood Boiled Brute.
GSC in the lines.
The future is clear.
Yep, and now he gets the opportunity if he wants it to have the Apotheosis on the Sethek later anyway.
It doesn't hit the Skipper. I'd imagine Draconic Lackey works best with his deck, which just plays 1 mana Discover a Dragon also.
He's got a lot of information too, Gia.
Mm-hmm.
He knows 5 of those cards, I believe.
Everything but the Warmaul, right?
Yeah. You can do a lot with that.
Mm-hmm. I hope he's taking notes somewhere, because Deck
Yeah.
Tracker software doesn't take note of what Lazul shows you, as far as I know.
Yeah, it's very important to make those sort of notes. Or screenshots in some people's cases. That was a thing with Elysiana, right? Just take a screenshot.
Yeah, absolutely. He ends up going for Raise Dead immediately because he doesn't want the Lackey mucking up the pool because it's quite likely to die this turn. And for Gaby, the hand is quite problematic in that he hasn't hit any of his card draw engine. This is another turn where he's still able to spend his mana and develop, but the next couple turns feel a little bit weak.
They do. Obviously getting a couple of lackeys of any sort is beneficial to him in a big way.
Oh, there's the Skipper. That's the money.
Yeah.
Has to be, right?
Yep.
It's just the line. Puts together a Skipper clear and a way to maybe get ahead on board, which is all the Priest really needs. 1 big target sticking, threatening to clear anything Gaby puts as a threat, and also just being a potential Apotheosis target.
Decision time for Gaby, as you can see by the fact he's actually thinking about his turn.
I don't hate starting with the swing into Lazul and seeing what Lackey he ends up with. Given that the first Warmaul did end up just killing a Sethic, we could just see the other one played down as well.
Yep, looks like he's basically going to do that, except he's
Okay,
just going straight for this, actually.
most damage on board right now. I
Yep.
like that in principle.
And
Trying
a
to
chunky,
pressure
healthy
Zoltan
minion as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough to remove outside of Shadow Word Death. It's going
he's
in the
been-
turn before Soul Mirror is available, and already just trying to put together not an OTK, but just consistent minion damage to deal the lethal.
Yeah, if you can keep Priest below 20 with this deck, then you've always got some sort of combo available to you. Like, even right now, if he was just going to pick up Korknar Leap, that's 12 damage.
So if he goes Skipper, Sethic, and the Blood Boiled Brute, that's a clear on everything but the Warmaul Challenger, as I imagine the Brute will trade the other Brute.
Yep.
And he'll have the mana to do so, right? Because he'll play 2 minions for 3 mana, which will discount the Blood Boiled by 3.
Yes. Gia with much quicker math than me, but yes, absolutely.
Ooh. one Korkron away from a really good time. Another
Yeah, and I'm
Shield of
curious to
Honor.
see what Gaby does here. We may see him switch to just keeping the board clear so that there's no bigger. He's going to draw into
Right.
that sooner rather than later. And then it's just
And
lethal.
he's just got pretty good trades with the second Warball coming down and ways to just stall out and create board after board while he's waiting for the real big threat. Oh, Scrap Imp is interesting if he picks up Korkron or
Ooh.
Grom at the right time.
Of course 30 damage is possible, Gia. Why did you even ask? That'd be
Yeah,
insane.
I apologize. I regret everything. It's always possible.
How can you forget the Scrap Imp?
So, Evasive Draconid here seems interesting. It's very tough for Gaby to interact with, especially having used a Blood Boil route.
Your feeble magic
Yep.
amuses me.
But
Oh,
options available. Do you want to use your Barov or do you want to just continue playing good things?
On wings of evil.
gonna go with option C and see what's in the box first.
Mm-hmm.
Deathwing seems pretty interesting to me. Yeah.
All three of those cards seemed interesting to me, honestly. I'm going to go with the judgment of you and Gaby, I think.
Yeah, I think what the Deathwing sets up for is if there is a big clear on the other side, plus some development, he just has an answer right back without having to commit the Barov. Like, Barov certainly seemed interesting here to help him push damage, but I think the health on the Warmaul Challenger is low-key very important to Gaby because he could just put together that sticking on board and acting as the
Yeah.
pseudo Korkron with the two Inner Rages in hand.
I mean, it's nearly there. Look at the Inner Rages and the Shield of Honor now. It's nearly
Right.
there.
It's just plus
My only
7 in hand.
concern with how he's played this is, and I'm sure it's absolutely fine, but if there'd been a Pyro drawn on the other side, the Apotheosis would have actually been quite helpful for the health gain.
Right, it is
But
certainly scary.
He knows it's not there, I think. I think his read is it's not there. When your opponent takes Risky Skipper, they haven't got a Pyro. It's probably where he went with that.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable read to make here. And Zoltan is certainly struggling to deal with this board. The last board seemed like it was begging for a Pyro, a bunch of 1 health
Yeah.
minions, but it didn't get that answer. So Gaby is just pushing the initiative here, even with the 5-1 minion looking fragile in other situations. Zoltan can go fishing with Cobalt Spellkin for, I imagine, just a wave of apathy.
Yeah. The only thing that will be putting him off, I think you have to do it. The thing that will be putting him off is the fact he doesn't get to use his hero power if he does that, because he has to death the 5-1.
Right. If he doesn't hit the good 1-cost spells. There's a wave. He's gonna hold on to it though for the next set of threats.
Yeah, in some ways he almost wanted the bad ones there. Oh, Gaby's going for the top deck. He's playing to the camera. Does he get it?
Well, there's just plus 7 in hand right now, right? With the 2 Inner Rages and Shield of Honor. It's very close.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll invest some of that this turn. He's got a big overkill with what he has at the moment. So he could try and set up a lethal on the board and keep back a combo lethal off the top of his deck at the same time,
Right.
especially now. I think we'll see him use some of this now.
Is this just lethal now? It's plus 10, right, in hand? Double Inner Rages, double Shield of
Okay.
Honors, and he has 3 on board. That was the top deck for Gaby. Even if he didn't get it immediately, though, you set up a really good point where he can just put another threat on board and continue to push incremental damage and still hold back all of that burst in hand. But he does get the immediate answer right now, and Zoltan is on the ropes, has to reverse sweep Gaby's last deck.
Yeah, Gaby not being influenced by Swids or Kallax. He just kills his opponent when he has lethal in hand. His countrymen, of course, and 2-0. And the priest now looking in trouble.
Yeah, extremely impressive showing from Gaby there. I was thinking that his opening hand didn't look all that great. He took a very long time to actually put any threat of substance on the board, but I think the tough turn for him was deciding to go for the Blood Boil Brood as early as he did, and it did get that incremental damage in the mid game, which allowed him to go for this lethal with no charging minions, but just very annoyingly statted minions that Zoltan didn't necessarily want to commit too many resources to a move.
Yeah, and it's put Gaby 2-0 ahead. Just that tempo again, stopping the priest from having its own way is the way he did that. Just kept it under control and then struck when the time was right. And you can say, well, he picked up direct damage, but that deck has a lot of damage in it for this reason. And is now onto the mage though. And I've been looking forward to talking mage with some of you people. I've listened to week after week, and you're the person who's going to get it in the ear, Gia, out of all 6 of you. I think you've all overrated mage all year long, and it's going to be fun watching me get proved completely wrong.
I mean, you've already laid out my argument for me, Lorinda. What am I supposed to say at this point? I think Mage is very strong in the hands of an experienced player, and Gaby definitely fits the bill. I'm interested by this being a full keep, though. Wandmaker, certainly a card that I hold on to in nearly every matchup. Shanvala, I feel, is maybe a bit ambitious when he doesn't necessarily have card draw. And the Devolving Missile seems to be at odds with the Shanvala game plan, which is Shanvala looks proactive and Devolving Missiles looks reactive.
But you might be reacting to a turn to Sethek, which would be so strong. And if you're not, then you've got the Shenvala followed by just a missiles to power it up. So I'm kind of keen on the fact that this works out.
Yeah,
it's easy to say. I saw
definitely...
Gaby keep them. I can say that.
I can see a world where the Shenvala comes down for tempo. It's pretty scary if they have the exact combination of coin, Cabal, Acolyte with Raise Dead to get rid of it, but he's now just seen the coin used as well. Zoltan paying immediate respect to the minion on board to give himself the best chance of sticking the Sethek, and that's absolutely why Gaby held on to the Devolving Missiles here.
Yep.
Allies is great too. He can get down the Violet Spellwing and then complete the quest with either Shenvala or Cyclone the next turn.
Yeah, it's looking nice all of a sudden. And it'd be interesting to see how this Shenvala goes. It's definitely felt like a bit of a brave keep, like you said, because it can get stolen. The priest can make good use of it. So let's see how this works out.
On top of it possibly getting stolen, there's also just the fact that it takes a while for it to be that impressive from the mage hand, especially if they're off coin. It's a big deal though that it gets to just cycle for Gaby here and get him closer to Apprentice.
Yeah, and even if you don't have the spells, which obviously the way it worked out, he does. The opponent doesn't know that. They have to deal with it. They may use resources really badly in dealing with it.
True, it's a pseudo taunt. Big deal that he picks up Lab Partner as well to muck up the potential targets for a Cabal Acolyte here.
Yeah,
but
absolutely
Zoltan
essential.
doesn't even have that problem. He has a bigger problem.
And it's a gigantic problem. He hasn't got a card worth playing.
Nope. The Raise Dead pool is a Desk Imp at the moment. That is really rough.
Well, what did you think of this game of Hearthstone, Joe? I thought it was great and knew that Mage was going to win all the time.
I think it's not over. You should give yourself some credit, Lorinda. There's still some room for Mage to underperform.
Sure. I'm not going to double down. You can't make me double down on this one. It's looking pretty grim.
I didn't realize I turned into such a troll when I've stayed up till 7 a.m.
I mean, you've cast with Garrett
that.
for 16 weeks as well. That probably helps.
Good point. Pyro picked up for Zoltan, but there's just not enough spells to really make that active. The clerics are completely stranded. This is just terrible. All he has to do, I suppose, is wait and hope that he can survive till Soul Mirror.
Yeah, and then he's got a 1-3, a 2-5, and 2-0 2s to deal with.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's more likely that he gets an Apotheosis on this Pyro and clears most of the board up next turn. He hasn't got an Apotheosis right now, but you know.
That would be the dream. Top decking, Apotheosis, or even just a dragon to activate these Clerics of Scales. There's a world where he goes for something like Pyro, I don't want to wave this board, but it softens up some of it, and then if the Pyro dies, it gets into the Raised Dead pool. But I think I'm just thinking too far down the rabbit hole. He could just hold on to the waves for consecutive turns and then set up for that Soul Mirror. But Gaby has just seen Hero Power pass for 2 turns now.
Yeah, so he's got a good idea what's in hand, although I doubt he'll guess this one correctly. He'll probably guess it's Mother's as well as the Soul and a collection of junk. But I don't know how many cards Zoltan kept. He may have kept a Cleric, which would absolutely give away what that card is. And Gaby, realising how far in front he is, not going for anything ridiculous on the Cyclone, just going for enough to keep the pressure coming.
Right. It's a bit interesting that he chooses to freeze each of his images instead of killing one off immediately. Board space starts to become a slight issue, but I think Gaby is recognizing that if this board sticks, he just wins. He doesn't even need the Giants.
Yep.
Okay, a dragon, finally. And so he can dig for the Apo and just stall out with wave this turn, then go for the Pyro swing on the next turn.
And he whiffs so far. But yeah, that's the play he set up last turn, as you described. Being brave with the waves, if you like, would have turned them into bad cards if he'd used them last turn. This is looking okay, and again he whiffs.
Yeah, Breath of the Infinite, though, can give him a scuffed Pyro clear. I'm interested in him starting with Renew there, because I think I would have personally gone for the second Cleric before deciding whether or not I would even use the Renew, because it's very possible it gets paired with the Pyro the next turn if it is Apotheosis. Gotta love buffing the images.
Yeah, next turn looks super good.
And Gaby looking like the player that is largely going to pass this turn because he is board locked here. It's probably just combustion missiles ping face. Try to just push any additional damage he can immediately.
Yep, does have the option to ping his own minion if he really wanted to play a giant, but...
Okay. After the board space resets, yeah, even if you ping your own minion, the Soul Mirror would potentially just get rid of the giant still. I think Gaby is upset with his play, though. It looks like he was considering just pinging a minion.
Yeah, mainly to get that one thief down, you'd think, and just get a better card, or get your... He's keeping Astromancer back, so that doesn't ever get stolen, but yeah. I think he's more annoyed at the speed at which he played it than actually that he did it.
Too slow.
Because he hasn't made his
turn
decision
lasting
yet.
longer than 5 seconds.
True. Although he's not the most rapid player we've seen. He's quick, but he's not like... we saw Lucas earlier playing incredibly fast.
Yeah, absolutely not. Pyro Apo Raised Dead is not enough to deal with the majority of the board, but it's a big swing in terms of healing. And he annoyingly can't fit in the Apo plus the Breath of the Infinite all in one turn.
Yeah, just that half turn behind that makes life so difficult sometimes.
Oh,
Maybe he gets something here. Can he get the other Raised Dead?
Even if he had gotten it, it's not quite enough to deal with the board. What he had set up, though, is for a Breath of the Infinite clear on the next turn. The problem is, Shanvala can generate some fresh 5/5s. Kind of made me wonder if it was supposed to maybe just be another wave turn there, and then go Pyro, Apo, Breath all on the same turn. Gets scary, though, if Gaby had generated some burn.
You don't pick the ones.
How can you make that decision so quickly?
Raven does it every time. Pyroblast.
Fair
Snap pick.
point. Absolutely good point. Gaby being learning from Raven. How to
That's just
snap
how the
pick.
food chain works. Learn to get with the program.
I'm definitely a little bit out of touch.
Okay, this is a pretty good Breath of the Infinite. There's that one 5/5 that is hanging around and being annoying, but I feel like
Yeah.
the upside of clearing an additional 5/5 is not worth using Soul Mirror for.
And it's going to annoy Gaby because this whole setup the last 2 or 3 turns has been all around baiting that Soul Mirror. So when he sees the breath, he is going to be slightly upset, I think.
And Zoltan can just tag the Twilight Drake onto this turn as well. The right order is Breath into Twilight Drake because that's the Dragon activator, so he ends up losing more health.
Yeah, good point. That's really weird, but it's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
The extra 1 point on the Drake.
Oh, Holy Smite's kind of nice though.
Mm.
Yeah, clear the board completely. Don't give
that
Gaby
correct?
any additional damage.
That's a 4-mana Holy Smite. And it also has made your Acolytes a lot worse. I'd like to have thought about that a bit longer.
I did like the look of it because it feels very much like Zoltan is assuming a defensive posture in the matchup. Twilight Drake, if it gets played down, is very likely to just get frozen, and then Gaby redevelops and possibly just gets extra 5 damage in from the minion sticking.
That's reasonable enough. You don't want to be soul mirroring most of that lot.
Soul Mirror will also just generate Zoltan the Death Rattle effects, which is pretty good.
Yeah, but Gaby gets first shot at clearing them up.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets first shot at using the card from... Actually, he doesn't get first shot at using the card from Blood Mage, because Zoltan will have 2 mana to use it with. But yeah, Gaby aware that he's got... He knows exactly what he's doing here in terms of playing this Blood Mage down.
I love Zoltan starting with Wand Maker because of this outcome where he can end up with a wave of apathy, and if he doesn't, he still has the mana to go for Soul Mirror. But now, because he got the good card, there is a decision point. He is going to go for the steal. Gaby praying for a good outcome. He's gotten pretty good ones so far. Oh, not again!
Another reason, he put it there for that reason, amongst the Soul Mirror reason as well, but he put it there for that to happen.
Zoltan is the worst Cabal Acolyte gamer I've ever seen. He's just consistently stolen all of the worst minions.
He is, and he also had the choice to wait a turn and steal 2 minions as well there. That was an option on the table.
True, but it feels like if he wasn't going to go for a Cabal Acolyte play, he had to go for a Soul Mirror anyway.
Agree. Yeah, agree. I'm not saying it was great, but there seems to be little bits of value sort of that haven't been picked up here, and some of them are probably right that he could have done.
And it's still going to be a pretty impressive Soul Mirror though on the next turn. Make no mistake.
Yeah, he's got plenty of value left in hand as well. This second Acolyte will be interesting to see how wrong I am, because it could just be very, very tasty. Now he's going to be able to get 2 more spells going forward. Another one of those could be just another wave of apathy, because that seems to be how the deck works. There are only 8 wand drops you can get from the dragon, so that's why it is so consistent.
Yep, definitely Priest is one of the more premium pools of 1-cost spells. I just want to say, Lauren, I think I might have backfired on the trolling, because I actually think Zoltan is in front here. He's had enough health to make sure that the Soul Mirror, even though there's going to be some minions remaining for Gaby, is very much a swing onto the board.
Gaby's not sure.
It's a Battlegrounds card.
I like Gaby, we just couldn't decide whether he was happy or sad with the outcome. That amused me.
It's true. He does end up with more attack on the board, but the taunt is pretty annoying because he would love to just push this damage face, Frost Nova with the Apprentice Cyclone turn, and try and set up for a Pyroblast in the near future. Gonna start digging with Solarian Cram Session, I have to imagine.
Yeah, and he's not happy about this. He's been refraining from playing this Solarian for the whole game so far. Just so that it couldn't get stolen, so bad things can't happen. But as Zoltan has got more and more into this game, he has now forced Gaby to have to take the risk of playing the Solarian.
Oh, this could be a pretty nice Cyclone turn. The mana doesn't work out great unless he uses the Apprentice as well. I was trying to figure out if there's a way you could hold the Apprentice, but he needed to go Nova and both Rays of Frost to push the maximum amount of damage phase. He really wanted to connect the Avalanche Elemental phase. And this does set up for Pyroblast Lethal on the next turn.
And this looks familiar to me from earlier. Soul Mirror's gone. Play all your cards. We saw that in the mirror in game 1 all that time ago. back when the sun was still below
Right.
the horizon in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, whiff on the next wave of apathy, which means Zoltan looks like he's about to bite the dust here. In terms of mind vision outs, he's maybe hoping for an evocation on the other side, maybe. But honestly, there's not even enough mana to get Frost Nova
Your
after that,
mind
if
is
that
not
were the
your
case.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. Yeah, I've reached the same conclusion you have, which is I don't know.
Dance, puppet. Dance.
And here we go. Pyroblast lethal. Gaby is cheering, and he absolutely deserves to, because what a clean 3-0 that was. Such a dominant performance.
And again, doesn't take the BM route. Actually shows the Pyroblast first without the messing around to let his opponent know it's over. And a beautiful win for Gaby. 5-0. Perfect day one for him. And yeah, he's been pretty close already in his first couple of attempts, but he is really here now. Like we are witnessing the new Hearthstone god, I think.
You know what I feel watching Gaby, Lorinda? It's the same I felt when I see these videos on YouTube of 4-year-old piano prodigy. I tried playing the piano for quite a while, and then I quickly realized that I was nowhere near the level of people that are a quarter my age. And Gaby once again proving that you can excel at Hearthstone no matter what age you are. It's extremely impressive, and I think Sottle was absolutely on the nose when he mentioned that Gaby, given a couple more years, maybe has absolutely what it takes to make it to the very peak of Hearthstone. Maybe it's not even going to take 2 years, Lorinda. It could be this year that he makes it into Masters.
Yeah, it could be this weekend. Could be on Sunday that we see him getting. Although with it being Europe, there's a lot of work to do. Let's have a look at the standings. And give please another name up there. Zananananan, who had to learn Paladin at the last minute because his APM wasn't enough. Lucas has looked good. XC, a very good Chinese player up there. And you can see the rest. It's a really good list of players.
Yeah,
Surrender
tons of names
4-1.
that there's tons of names, honestly, that I'm not too familiar with, but here and there we're seeing the greats mixed in with the new blood. Surrender, as you mentioned, very close brush with making a Worlds appearance once again, but falling short. Good to see that he is still on the grind, even though he is very much safe for another season of Grandmasters. Rafael is a name I also see on Twitter a lot. I think also constantly supporting the Korean scene. So a lot of, I think, APAC players here, which makes me pretty happy to see.
Yeah, and they have had the tough end of it as well. Time zones are a thing. Everyone obviously is professional enough to correct their sleep patterns and all that, but it is still something that will get to them. It is definitely easier for the European and American